let's start with the story that I really want to cover. That is the Alex Jones story. And the thing that's interesting about this story, particularly, is that Alex Jones decided to respond as well with a full 15-minute segment in response to this. You would think his time in court and responding there would be enough, but no, he still wants to talk about it. So, we'll hear from him and what he has to say afterwards. So, Alex Jones, after a court case that's been going on for quite some time now, even before I started streaming, has been found guilty. And he is responsible for the damages triggered by his false claims on the Sandy Hook shooting. Of course, Alex Jones famously thought the Sandy Hook shooting was a fake government plot to scare people and taking their guns away, and that the children and parents that were affected by the shooting, that took over, I believe, over 20 children, very small kindergarten and grade school age children, were all crisis actors in on it with the government to take people's rights away. This started basically a wave of harassment towards the victims of this terrible tragedy, because Alex Jones wanted to make a catchy headline and catch people's attention. And so people were harassed for years about how their fake kids never really died. Anyway, let's read a little bit about this and then see Alex Jones' response to this. So, Alex Jones was a conspiracy theorist who hosts a right-wing commentary website InfoWars, was found legally responsible in 2 lawsuits for damages caused by his claims surrounding the 2012 Sandy Hook school mass shooting. According to the court documents released Thursday, Judge Maya Gura Gamble issued default judgments on Monday against Jones and his outlet for not complying with court orders to provide information for the lawsuits brought against him by the parents of the 2 children killed in the shooting. The ruling, which was first reported on by the Huffington Post, effectively means that Jones lost the case by default. A jury will convene to ascertain how much he will owe the plaintiffs. An attorney for the parents, Mark Baxon, told CNN in a written statement that the rulings offer his client the closure they deserve. He added that Mr. Jones was given ample opportunity to take these lawsuits seriously and obey the rule of law. He has chosen not to do so, and I will face the consequences for that decision. So basically, Alex Jones did not cooperate with the courts. And since he did not cooperate with the courts decided, okay, fuck this, we're ruling against him. Obviously, Alex Jones did not cooperate with the courts because he knew he didn't have a chance in hell. Jones falsely claimed that the December 2012 shooting in Newtown, Connecticut was a giant hoax carried out by crisis actors on behalf of people who opposed the Second Amendment. The shooter killed 26 people at the school, 20 of whom were young children, before killing himself. Several families of the victims sued Jones for defamation in both Texas and Connecticut courts. The Texas judge essentially ruled that Jones and his parent company, Freedom Speech Systems, intentionally disobeyed court orders when they didn't hand over certain documents related to the lawsuits. Okay, so he lost. Now it is up to the jury to find out how much exactly Alex Jones is going to owe the families he affected with his fucking irresponsible, god-awful lies about Sandy Hook. Which, wonderful. But there's a catch. There's always a catch. The catch is, Alex Jones is still a walking, breathing man, so he has comments about the Texas judge. He has comments about the court decision. And so, I am obviously interested in what Alex Jones has to say. So, let's listen to it. What's his response to him not even trying, not even putting up a fight, and losing the case?
Well, the Huffington Post and other establishment publications are beside themselves with glee. Look at their headline right here. Alex Jones just lost 2 Sandy Hook cases. A judge said, that's right, they're getting rid of juries in America. Every basic form of American liberty is being abolished and overthrown as we speak. They're coming after me because I'm
To be clear, the reason why was because Alex Jones was not participating with court procedure and not handing over necessary documents. And you do still have a jury. The jury is currently deciding how much you're going to owe the plaintiffs.
standing in their way. They're coming after me because they're coming after you. The left in this country has completely weaponized the legal system and the judiciary. There are so many examples of it. But just in the last few days, a decorated lieutenant colonel who came out and criticized the hasty, horribly organized withdrawal of Afghanistan is sitting in a military stockade, in a brig, in a prison, without even being charged with a crime yet, and he's already been there 5 days. We live in a country where pastors from New York to California to Louisiana are arrested repeatedly for holding church services while Walmart down.
Now, what he's doing right now is he's basically trying to build a fantasy. The fantasy being that the left controls the courts in this nation. Somehow, the left control the courts, yet we still have the death penalty, even though the left is widely against the death penalty. We still have mandatory minimum sentencing, even though the left is against mandatory minimum sentencing. We still have a host of completely draconian laws when it comes to drug control and the drug war. Yet the left controls the courts in this country. We have yet to hire tons and tons and tons of more immigration judges, even though the left controls the courts in this country. Again, what he's doing is he's finding cherry-pick examples, which we could try to dig up, but again, it is Alex Jones, so I don't know how much effort I really want to put into digging each and every case he's bringing up here. But he's trying to build a idea, a fantasy, that the left controls all the courts, therefore you can disregard whatever this court has to say about their decision against Alex Jones and the Sandy Hook case.
Down the street is open. That's the country we live in. And now we're told that there are mandates for forced inoculations and $700,000 fines that is in the new stimulus bill if employers don't enforce it. Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't America. This is tyranny. And this is a judicial system that has decided that it's going to establish its own form of judicial dictatorship in this country. So when I see...
Also, can I just say, completely unrelated and a little nitpicky, but this isn't America, this is tyranny. I mean, America and tyranny have coexisted for the entirety of its existence, whether it be the NSA, whether it be the Patriot Act, whether it be Japanese internment camps, slavery, certain draconian laws when it comes to immigration, the monitoring of mosques in New York City. No, you cannot separate the two as if America exists completely independent of tyranny until a judge decided to rule against Alex Jones in the Sandy Hook case.
Activities like this being carried out against me, I don't feel sorry for myself. I feel sorry for this republic whose basic checks and balances are being destroyed. Now, if you go back almost 10 years ago, we saw the tragic shootings at Sandy Hook. And it was hard for Americans to believe that someone would go in and execute a bunch of elementary school students. And the internet quickly had questions and talked about anomalies. It was something that I only covered a few times on air. But years later, evidence...
That's it. That's all he says about what he said. Let's listen a little bit more, but is that really all he's going to say about the comments he made at the time? Yeah, a few times on air, I asked questions anyway.
Came out that some of those anomalies were not accurate, and I said, I believe Sandy Hook actually happened.
Okay, that's a very interesting way that he classified it. In fact, I actually have some footage here that we're going to look at. So, this is Alex Jones's deposition on the Sandy Hook shooting. This is when he had to directly confront many of the statements he made about the Sandy Hook shooting. And I wanted to look at this footage because not only do you get to see some of the statements he made about the Sandy Hook shooting, but you also get to see how he reacted to it immediately when under pressure. Didn't I already show this? Yes, I've showed this before, but it's, of course, pertinent information considering the case and how he's trying to classify his comments about Sandy Hook.
Of what I have marked as Exhibit 4. You ever seen that before?
I don't remember.
You're not sure if you've seen this before?
Remember.
No.
Okay. You'll see up at the top it has a timestamp, 12/14/12.
Yes.
You know that's the date of Sandy Hook, right?
I don't know.
You don't know that?
What, is that the date?
It is.
Okay.
It is, Mr. Jones. You will admit, I mean, you've done mocking imitations of Sandy Hook parents crying, correct?
No.
I want to play you a video clip, too, from September 24th, 2014 and November 11th, 2016. Will you play the video clip called Crying?
And then you've got parents laughing, going, and then they walk over to the camera and go, and not just one, but a bunch of parents doing this. Then we see footage of one of the reported fathers of the victims, Robbie Parker, doing classic acting training where he's laughing and joking, and they say, hey, we're live. And he goes, oh. And maybe that's real. I'm sure it is.
Number one, going like, that is mocking the parents, obviously. But the other thing that I get here is listen to the claims he's making. Oh, that's classic acting training. He has no way to prove this. Does anybody have a way to disprove this? No, but he's making unfalsifiable claims about the people who were victimized during the Sandy Hook shooting. So the idea that he was just asking questions when he was making claims like, oh, look at them, they're actors, that's acting training. That's not the case.
You realize now you were mocking the difficult emotional reactions of people who provably lost their children.
No, I was not mocking. I was showing what people were questioning. It was not to mock the parents. It was showing why people were questioning. It's you that is projecting mocking onto it. I was showing what he did.
Starting into 2015, you learned that a Sandy Hook parent named Leonard Posner was behind a group called Honor Network. Correct? That was fighting online abuse of Sandy Hook victims?
I did, I think.
And when you learned that, and when Honor complained to YouTube in 2015, you told your viewers that Honor was run by Mr. Posner, you showed addresses being used by Mr. Posner, and you said he needed to be investigated in Florida. Didn't you say that?
Objection is to form.
No.
Okay, let's play a clip here. I'm going to show you something that you and Mr. Dew were talking about on February 12th, 2015. Can you play addresses for me?
He's been getting all kinds of grief from Mr. Posner. Anything that comes out, social media shut down due to Sandy Hook false copyrights. What's interesting is they list the address for the Honor Network in Boca Raton, Florida. You look up the address on that, which says, you think, you know, if they had this organization, they would have some sort of headquarters where they would be setting up a memorial.
Well, we'll just start investigating that. And I guess I'm going to have to probably go on up to Newtown. I'm going to have to probably go investigate Florida as well.
If a person were to stake out those addresses, they could wait for Mr. Posner to come pick up his mail, couldn't they?
Objection is to form.
True?
I mean, the guy's running an anti-free speech foundation.
Let me make sure I have this really clear. You don't believe the official story is Sandy Hook. You think there was cover-up? You think there was manipulation? You think that there is some sinister thing going on?
I still think children died. I believe mass shootings happened. They just had one in Brazil, a tragedy. And I believe it's a crisis. And I go back to the point of all gun owners being collectively blamed. Then it's traumatic, and so people go and they find anomalies, and then I've kind of retrospectively gone back and seen how I did believe that stuff. And then I go back and I've now studied more, actually, the real anomalies, and it's just the school system and government trying to cover its rear end from liability. And so there definitely has been there's been a cover-up of the events. And I think there's a lot of evidence showing there could have been a second shooter. There is the helicopter footage of the man in the woods.
He's still going. Anyway, so and by the way, this is just a very small section of the claims that he made, right? The word hoax was used on multiple occasions. He made multiple other completely falsifiable claims about Sandy Hook. But this is just a small section of the type of stuff he said about the Sandy Hook shooting, where 20 children lost their lives, as well as 6 other individuals and then the shooter, of course, killed themselves. So him trying to say, oh, I made a few claims here, or I was just asking questions. That type of classification of what happened is completely inaccurate. Let's go back to what Mr. Jones is saying here.
It was the minute that I said I thought it happened that the mainstream media said, oh, you said it didn't happen for attention. When in truth, I almost had employees quit over it. A lot of people disagreed with me, including some of my family, and it was not a popular view on my show. So the idea that I questioned Sandy Hook because it was some master plan of mine to get famous was completely asinine. I questioned WMDs in Iraq. I was right about that. I questioned babies in the incubators being thrown out by Saddam. That wasn't true either. I questioned Jussie Smollett, and that was a fraud. I questioned Bubba Wallace. I questioned hundreds of other events out there that have turned out to be staged, like the Gulf of Tonkin in 1964 that got us into Vietnam, which they declassified in 2004, was staged.
By the way, Alex Jones did not find out that the Gulf of Tonkin incident was quote unquote like staged, right? He did not discover that. That was an Alex Jones dip, okay? I don't know how old Alex Jones is, but that was in 1964. The problem with this method, right, was, well, you know, I found one conspiracy, or there was these other conspiracies I would write about. Therefore, you know, I was just continuing that great work. If I point at everything and I say conspiracy, 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 at everything in the room, everything, whether it has to do with the trans agenda or 9/11 or WMDs in Iraq or anything, yeah, of course you're going to get a few things right. If you point at literally everything and yell conspiracy, or in everything there could be the slightest crumbs or signs of conspiracy, you point at it and you yell conspiracy. Once in a while, you're going to get something right. Like the babies in incubators, which ended up being untrue when they talk about Saddam's invasion of Kuwait. But for every one thing Alex Jones somehow stumbles upon and gets right, there's a million other things, like Sandy Hook, he gets wrong. A broken clock is at least right twice a day, is of course the saying. So yes, Alex Jones has been right before, but I think the serfs use this analogy. If you grab a bunch of darts and just throw it at the dartboard, yeah, 10 of them might hit the dartboard, but the other 40 are gonna miss. Jesus.
So when you see cases like that over and over and over again, and you're a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. But my identity is not Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook is a blip on the radar screen in the different stories, the tens of thousands I've covered. But it's not a blip on the radar screen for the lobbies that are anti-gun, the big corporate institutions that seek to disarm the American people. And they have successfully been able to use the deaths of those children to sue Remington into bankruptcy and to demonize the idea of self-defense itself and to try to basically destroy and steal the birthright of self-defense from all Americans. In the Huffington Post story that I'll show you in a moment, even their top legal expert says that these death penalty sanctions are basically a myth because you're guaranteed to be able to try the facts of the case. So this is a legal theory they're trying to get through to get rid of due process using the straw man of the demonized villain, Alex Jones. This endangers everybody's due process, everybody's free speech. And the system is hoping that they can have the Alex Jones law, that's what they call it, to get rid of people's free speech selectively while protecting the corporate media's free speech. That's not how history works. Everybody is going to get burned by this. A judge issued default judgments, a rarity in the legal world, against Jones and InfoWars after the conspiracy theorists failed to produce discovery records. Ladies and gentlemen, first let me set the record straight. My lawyers told me in Connecticut, they said, you shouldn't even produce what they're asking for. No one's ever done this. And I said, I'm going to do it. They want to default me. I released all of my company bank records going back to Sandy Hook and up until now. No one has ever done that. The entire QuickBooks, no one's ever done that in a civil case like this. Only criminal cases have that. I just said they have this weird, crazy theory that I'm secretly being paid off by the NRA or something to do this. Let them see it all. Let them see there's no money from the Mercers or the NRA or the Republicans or anybody. And so we did that because the judge in Connecticut demanded it. Right here in Texas, this is all coordinated. They asked for less, but it was still substantive. Tens of thousands of emails, thousands of records. It went on and on. But they kept demanding the Sandy Hook marketing records. I don't do marketing around news we cover. I have products and sponsors that I promote and market for, and we gave them in Connecticut and Texas that basic information. Here's the script. Here's what we wrote. Here's what we say about the product. You see me do it on air. Well, they say that's not true. They say I've covered up. They say I haven't given them any information. And so this judge and the judge previous, because when I'm retired in Travis County, will never let me have the lawyers I want that are well-known, famous First Amendment lawyers like Mark Randazza and others. And so we have local lawyers, most of which are brand new. They'll take the case and they go in and they get yelled at and they roll over and say, I'm sorry, we'll do better, we'll give you more, when the judge and the opposing side say, we know you've got the information. This is like asking somebody for a confession that doesn't exist.
So what he's saying right now is that we gave them everything, but then they claimed that we had documents that we never had. But then my lawyers, being the weak lawyers, because I was not allowed the good lawyers, told them that we actually did have those and would give them to them. But then, of course, we couldn't produce it, and so we lost the case. Even if that was true, which I highly doubt, that the Alex Jones retelling of events around anything related to Sandy Hook or the cases after should be taken at face value. But even if that is correct, that would still ultimately be him and his legal team's fault.
And that's what's completely crazy about this whole thing. The judge also, who is known as a bomb thrower, who's known by the Democrats that I've talked to as well, is just unbelievably ill-informed about the law. They even quote it here in the Huffington Post, of all places, who's attacking me.
Isn't it a little weird for somebody who's in court for being sued about this, like Alex Jones, to say that they're ill-informed about the law when you're the one in court about to pay damages? I don't know. I just think that's a little funny.
And it's unheard of. Lawyer Bill Ogden with Far Ball told Huffington Post that Gamble's default, that's the judgment ruling, is a bit of a myth in the legal world, but not if they can make it real with me, where a judge just decides, wow. We learn about death penalty sanctions in law school as more of a theory, and it's almost unheard of to have them handed down in a case like this, continuing to refuse to comply with imaginary things that don't exist, or cell phone records from like 7-8 years ago, text messages. I'm not a tech guy. I don't have all that kind of stuff. It's absolutely ridiculous. And one thing that the lawyer on the other side argued at the last hearing before this one was, well, Mr. Jones, this happened many, many years ago, so he's forgotten. So we've got to default him now because he doesn't remember this stuff in depositions. They sued me 7 years into it. It's now been 10 years. Ladies and gentlemen, this is unprecedented, and it's simple. They don't want me to have a jury trial. Did you know that in the Texas cases, I'm being sued by people, and they say in the court case that I've never said their names. Texas law says you can't sue somebody if you didn't say their name for defamation, but it's right there. Did you hear me? I'm being sued by people whose names I've never said.
This reminds me of Jackson Hinkle on Twitter after the Taiwan debate. But the thing that gets me is he's spending so much time here like, no, dude, seriously, I didn't really lose, okay? Look, I didn't really lose. Really, it was but my lawyer sucked. Wait, that would mean I was lose? Well, then it's actually because the judge sucks and he doesn't understand the law, okay? He doesn't understand the law, and it's up for prediction. Oh, how much time are we going to spend talking about my comments, which are the whole reason that I am in court in the first place? No, we don't need to talk about that. Let's move on. Anyway, I find it interesting that Alex Jones, after everything, is still chugging along, right? Do you know how easy it would be probably for him to just be like, look, I was wrong. I'm not always right. I'm a reporter, and just move on with his life? Instead, he does this. Because this is always what he does. He needs to find a way to wiggle out of whatever claim he makes. And that's the thing that gets me about Alex Jones, is I think that what he should be doing, if I was him, what I would be doing is just being like, look, I got it wrong because I'm just so worried about government tyranny. like the incubators when it comes to Kuwait, like when it comes to WMDs and all these other things. And I got it wrong. I was overzealous. Oops. Now I would like to move on with my life and concentrate on the next big government conspiracy. Instead, he's doing this blowback strategy where he's firing back at the judges. He's saying, well, it's not my fault. It's that my legal team sucks. Well, no, it's not the legal team. It's actually because the judge is a bomb thrower. He's a legal extremist working in meth. They don't want to bring me to jury trial. The reason why I couldn't produce the court documents is because, well, this happened 10 years ago now. The case started 7 years ago, so I can't produce the text messages at the time. I can't produce all these records at the time. I would produce them, I just can't. I've lost it all the time. Every excuse in the book. He said he was wrong on Joe Rogan. Okay, then why is he doing this? Why even bother with this? Just say you were wrong and move on. That's the easiest thing to do. It's the easiest way to resolve this. The longer you do this, you just drag it out. That is what he's doing here. He is dragging this out pointlessly. Which remote is this to? Into that one. Okay, got it. Anyway, that's enough of the Alex Jones case.